and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast with Jesse, Heater, and MJ. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing Netflix's first film, the 2015 war drama Beasts of No Nation, directed by Cary Joji Fukunaga and starring Abraham Attah and Idris Elba. To start off our episodes, we're going to head off with a fast flick section where each presenter is going to do a quick 30-second summary of the film. So we're going to head over to Heater first to give us his 30-second summary.
Thanks a lot, Jesse. So Beasts of No Nation, the story of a young boy in war-torn Africa and his transformation into a child soldier, his relationship with the battalion leader and his loss of innocence.
Very nice, mate. Brilliant performances by a minor teaming up with an A-lister about a world that I can't empathise with. A raw and compelling war tale about power, relationships and the importance of family.
Awesome. So mine's a little bit longer. I've got a young boy struggles to get by in a war-torn country. He's separated from his family and joins a rebel cause with the intention of getting revenge on the people who took his family away. The commandant of the group takes him under his wing for more reasons than merely mentorship. We follow his journey of losing his innocence to standing up and making the choice to leave and head towards turning his life around and dealing with the horrible things he has seen and done. So I think we've all probably got
It's a heavy start.
Very heavy start.
Pretty intense one.
With. So before we sort of get into the film sort of in a meaty sort of way, we got some sort of film history or fun facts about the film that we could discuss. And Peter, do you want to hit us off with something?
So just some facts. I was found that the film is based on a novel that was published in 2005 with the same name. And the writer and director, Cary Joji Fukunaga, he worked on the script for 7 years before I got into production.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I should have known that, but I didn't know that. I didn't know it was... No, the book, sorry. The book. I don't care how long he wrote for.
So, MJ, what did you find out about the film?
I think the most interesting thing for me is the fact that this is the first film that Netflix produced themselves and made themselves, and I think it's important for us to sit there and go, okay, they've released this really compelling war drama as opposed to some of the other films that they brought out recently. Does that mean anything that they went with something that was released in cinemas at the same time, but were they trying to make a stand? And this is the sort of company that we want to be known for. We're not going to be sitting there just bumping out these Adam Sandler movies and a few other smaller films that they're getting out. I think it was a really important point for them to make this film as their first film. And
talking about that, sort of this was their first film, so they were sort of breaking ground in that they wanted a theatrical release so they can put it up for award season, but they got shut down by a lot of cinemas as well because cinemas want that 90-day period where they have exclusive rights to show a film, and in America in particular, a lot of the main cinema chains said no, we're not going to show your film because you're not going to guarantee us
less value for them
to make money as well.
Obviously it was filmed in West Africa in Ghana, and the director actually contracted malaria while filming. Unfortunate for him. And also read some real former child soldiers were cast as extras. However, a lot of them had to be replaced with locals while filming as they were arrested under suspicion of being mercenaries in West Africa.
Seems to be a fair reason to arrest someone.
Yep.
Netflix did do a good job of trying to get it screened, so they had it at the Venice International Film Festival. And the young kid who played Agu, he won the Emerging Actor Award for the Marcello Mastroianni Award. So that's quite impressive. So
Abraham Attah, just to give
him the
credit that he needs.
It was fantastic.
14 years old when they were filming this.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I think he's gone on to be in... Was he in Spider-Man Homecoming?
Yeah, he was in Spider-Man Homecoming. He just had a small role in that.
That's when you know you've made it, when you're in Marvel films.
Yeah. Can be in another 10 films without any worries.
Just in the theme of awards, so it wasn't nominated for any Oscars, but Idris Elba was nominated for a Golden Globe for the Best Supporting Actor. He did lose it, though, to Sylvester Stallone for his role in Creed, which was a good performance, but we could debate that for a while, I reckon.
Stallone didn't win the Oscar that year.
He did not win it. Mark Rylance won it, I think, for Bridge of Spies.
Yep, you're right.
Bridge of Spies, what a slow movie. Critical consensus, what did the critics think of this film? Popular.
Yeah.
Popular. I think having a look, Rotten Tomatoes had it at 91%, which is pretty high, I guess, for a compilation of reviews. Not that I'd say any of us judge our perception of films on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wouldn't have thought so.
Not at all. Not at all. So,
With that said, I don't think we're going to be hitting 91 in the next few weeks with the films we're doing. So, 91 is a big score.
When I was watching it, I was playing around with my volume because I don't know if you guys noticed, when the Netflix logo came at the start and the end, there was not that didn't, wasn't there?
Okay, I didn't notice that.
I didn't notice that at all. No.
So I took it back to the start like 3 times. I turned my Apple TV off, turned it back on, turned the volume up on the TV. I'm like, what's going on? And then
it's not there.
It wasn't there. So I think it was a purposeful, maybe to draw out that impact of the opening scene. But
it's really interesting.
Yeah, and wasn't on at the Netflix logo at the end.
It's
wasn't there
fascinating.
either.
Oh, very interesting.
Have they done that? Do we know that they've done that before?
I haven't seen it in any original Netflix content before, so.
Wow.
That stood out to me massively.
Yeah.
So I guess going around now, what are some likes and dislikes that we've had from this film? MJ, anything that stood out for you that you really liked?
Look, it's funny because I really did enjoy this film, and I enjoyed the fact that we were taking on a journey from the perspective of the main character, and I think the way they set him up to be this young guy who. He's got a pretty good life. He's pretty safe. He's got good parents. He's got good family. He's basically naive to this war that's going on. So from an audience perspective, the majority of people watching it are in that same boat. They don't understand what it's like to deal with a war-torn nation. They don't understand what it's like to have your family ripped apart. So everything that Agu is going through, as an audience, we're going through it with him. So we get to grow with him and learn with him. And I think that's a really nice way to bring your audience along. And that's probably what I enjoyed the most about the film is that Agu and I guess the director really took us on that journey so we could understand where it was coming from. But on the flip side of that, we do need to remember that everything from this movie is from Agu's perspective.
Yeah.
And you need to sometimes take a few things with a grain of salt, which is very interesting as well. And I'll get into some of that stuff later. But really good technique, and it worked really well because it's difficult to have a film with such graphic themes and ideas and still keep everyone on board. And I was engrossed the whole time, even though it was unsettling to watch at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Peter?
I agree with everything that MJ said. One of the big things to me I liked in this was the acting performances. Yeah. I thought there were some really great performances. Idris Elba, who is someone that I love, that I think was his best acting performance in a film. I thought he was fantastic.
So TV, what's his best performance on TV?
His best performance is The Wire. His character as Stringer Bell will not be beaten.
Luther?
Luther is his second best acting performance. So Idris Elba rates as Stringer Bell in The Wire, Detective DCI John Luther in Luther, and then this is number 3. I think this is his best acting performance in a film. I thought it was phenomenal.
And can we just talk about... I want to talk about the Commandant as a character as well.
Hated the character.
But
love Idris, but yeah.
So there was... Did anyone else go through a period where you were starting to like him as this saviour and rescuer?
Absolutely, until that one scene.
Correct. Yeah, I was just going to say.
Okay, I really did like him.
And I reckon it was just before that scene where he coaxes Agu into his sleeping quarters with him.
I thought it was on a little bit earlier because there was that scene, it was earlier on where he took Stryker into that hut.
Yeah.
Up early on. I was like, they didn't insinuate. It was just an insinuation of what was going on. But
yeah. But I think when you first meet him, I didn't like him. I thought he was like this leader of savages, and I didn't like him. But then after a while, I was like, are we, as an audience, supposed to like him? Like, this guy's kind of doing good for Agu. And then when that scene
he's
hit...
taking care of him and all the other soldiers in his battalion.
And then I was like, no, he's a bad man. But
was he doing it for the kids, or was he doing it because he wanted that promotion, though?
Well, you see what happened when he didn't get that promotion. I think he's pretty much inspired by selfish motives.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. I agree.
No, he's a bad man.
Yep.
But he just he was huge.
He was huge, and I think you can't go past the kid actors in this film either. Like both Agu and Stryker. I think both the kids that played those roles.
Stryker's actor, I thought, was fantastic for a guy who didn't. I don't think he spoke at all during the film.
That was his thing, wasn't it?
He's like just his facial expressions and just the way he carried himself and like his body language. I thought his acting was phenomenal for a guy who didn't actually speak. It was great.
No, I couldn't agree more. I actually felt like Stryker was one of the most significant characters in the film purely because he was probably the only one who understood Agu and what Agu was going through.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this later on about when he actually gets killed. So, but
spoiler alert. That's why we recommend you watch the movies before listening to our podcast.
Yeah. Just going on from what MJ said just about, I guess, Strike and his relationship with Agu, especially after that scene that we'll talk about, is when, as soon as it happens, Agu comes out and Striker straight away, he goes up to him and he consoles him. He puts his arm around him just because, he kind of knows what's happened and exactly what it feels like. So, he's there to be his friend and help him out, and he knows it's going to be a terrible time.
Yeah.
So, director, obviously... We like the way the film was made. Is there any other work or comparisons to any other Corey's other work that we can think of?
It's hard because it's really the first kind of war movie kind of he's done, or war piece he's done. Obviously, he directed the first season of True Detective, which I'm happy to go on about for hours and hours. Is one of the best individual seasons of TV I think ever been made.
Totally agree. Just ignore the second season.
Ignore the second season completely, but the first season, one of the best single seasons of TV you ever watch.
And I think he's going to direct the next James Bond film, or
I believe
one after maybe. Talks about that.
Absolutely. So I thought he did a great job, I guess, in his first real experience of doing kind of a war drama. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
What about any of the actors? Are there anyone else that you could have seen, in one of these roles in the film?
I actually did have something that I wanted to ask you guys about it. I guess, how do you think the movie would have gone if they had cast some bigger actors? More obviously, it was Idris Elba than it would have just kind of first guys. So I was thinking guys like Chiwetel Ejiofor, maybe playing the father. Ejiofor, sorry. Someone like an Anthony Mackie playing the 2IC role, someone like that. Some guys like that who are a bit more renowned. How do you think it would have worked if they had put those big name actors in there?
I sort of liked that you barely knew anyone in the cast, because I think it sort of made it more real.
Yeah.
You actually felt for these kids and felt for what was going on in their world. And I guess if you put a face to a character, probably, I don't know, maybe wouldn't have come across as meaningful.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. And you know what? I think if there was like someone like the 2IC, I don't think they would have changed too much. But yeah, I don't think it missed a beat at all by not having any big A-listers.
I thought they did really well just with the cast they had. Yeah.
Do you think that? And I don't know if this is the right way to look at it. Do you think this resonates more if it's not based in an undisclosed African country? Like, for Western culture can't empathise with it. Like, you see so many war movies that do really well at the box office and do really well critically, because they're based on the wars that, as Western culture, we're familiar with. Yep. This is a war movie at the end of the day. But do people kind of separate themselves from it because they're just so unfamiliar with what's happening, and they sit there and go, okay, look, this is happening over there. Oh, that's not a great situation. Like, do you think that changes things because it is? And it's called Beasts of No Nation. It's you don't know where they are, but I don't think that matters. I think that just highlights the overall issue that's happening or has happened.
I reckon, I don't know if either of you guys have seen Hotel Rwanda.
Yeah, that was the comparison.
Yeah, that was like to me that's very similar in themes and tone of the film, and I feel like that sort of did all right.
It did. It did. It's also based on a true story, and it's based in Rwanda, the genocide in Rwanda. Whereas this was, as I said, I just feel like it could slip under the radar because it's crazy the stuff that's happening over there, or that's happening in this film. But you just don't think of it as a straight up war film.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
So, any standout scenes that we can think of? Anything that really caught your eye?
I kind of after watching the movie, going back, I really loved the opening scene of the Imagination TV.
Yep.
He's carefree and he's happy. They're playing with their friends. I think it's just kind of a great comparison for the dark and horror of what's to come. So after seeing that movie and seeing how it went to him, just I guess seeing that carefree and happiness of the children, I really enjoyed that opening scene.
The opening 15 minutes did such a good job at setting up Agu's life, and it highlights that significant change that he was about to undergo. I mean, if you don't see that, the character development in Agu doesn't matter as much.
Yep.
But I mean, he had such a great situation, and I think that's where the importance of family came into it as well. And I think Agu's breaking point was when he realised that he wasn't going to find his mother. I think even though despite all the stuff he was going through, at the back of his head, he's like, I'm going to find my mother. I'm going to find my mother. And that moment where he thought he found her and it just clicked that he wasn't going to find her, I mean, he just went to another level.
Yeah, the TV as well. Like you can when towards the end they're in that scene where 2IC is killed, and Agu's sitting there watching that TV in that room, like transfixed with it for a while because it's like going back to it.
Yeah,
going back to where he was. So it's that nice little connection as well. Connecting on from what MJ said, that scene where he sees who he thinks is his mother, that's probably one of the highlight scenes to me. That the tracking of that scene goes back to like True Detective, and in True Detective there's a scene that goes for about 10 minutes, and it literally followed Matthew McConaughey through houses, through doors, and I feel like this was the same sort of scene. So Agu runs through the house, he knocks the shelves, knocks the glasses, looks over the balcony, and the camera just follows him without cutting, and he finds his mother, and just the impact of what happened to the lady in that house and the child in that house, and they were able to tell that all in that one take without any cuts. I thought was pretty incredible.
It was really well done. It was a difficult scene to watch him.
That's the beauty of being from his perspective, because you're watching it from here, and he's encumbered by so many things in front of him, and the whole thing's a mess. And that's what I love about being your Agu in this film. You are 100%, and that was big.
And I think the voiceovers of Agu telling his story, and every time he did that voiceover talking of his mother, I think that was a really good narrative connection throughout to reacquaint the audience to understand that they're following his story, and the desire to find his mum throughout, which I felt was really good. The other scene that I thought was really good as well was the scene with the grenades in the mouth.
Yeah.
You've got the grenades in the mouth. You don't actually need to see what actually happens, but the impact of, the commandant walking away and seeing the explosion in the background, I thought that was really well done as well.
So that, to me, this highlights something where I can be a little bit critical, because it goes both ways. I can see both ways that they're trying to make this film. And you see these truly shocking situations like grenades stuck in people's mouths and child soldiers, rape and murder. But it didn't floor me the way that other films have floored me with that kind of graphic content. Like Hotel Rwanda, for example, is a great comparison, and that knocked me about so much more than this film did. And I don't know whether that's deliberate, because we are watching it from Agu's perspective, and he's at a point where he is completely numb to all this stuff. And as a director, is he trying to make sure that we don't think he's almost trying to normalise it because this is the way it is, or like has he missed a beat with trying to pull you in emotionally to a completely other level? Because I felt like watching the actual content, I was sitting there going, this is nuts, but I didn't feel it the way I thought I would have felt it. And I don't know what you guys think, whether that's a missed opportunity or whether that was a deliberate choice because Agu was numb to it.
I think it was deliberate because we're going through this film with Agu and he was numb to it, and that's how he wanted us to perceive it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think.
Are there any scenes that you didn't like? Anything that you thought could have been done better?
Well, this goes to Stryker's death. For me, was the most significant film significant scene in the movie, and that got to a moment of the story where Agu was done. Like this was the one guy who was understood him, who he kind of had solace in, and it was the most. It was underwhelming in a sense where like he just all of a sudden he got shot that we didn't realise. They carried him on for a little bit. All of a sudden, oh no, he's actually dead. Yeah. Let's put a big branch on him and off we go. Yeah. And to me, I thought it was a missed opportunity, because I'm sitting there going, this is huge. Stryker, he's the man, and oh no, he's gone. Let's just gloss over it. But again, I think that's where Agu was at. Yeah. Like he was numb to it.
Yeah, I literally had that. I thought that scene dragged on where he dies and then Agu puts him on his back and walks with him, and this film went for 2 hours and 40 minutes, something like that.
Was that long? Was it?
It was needed a good edit.
Long, yeah.
You there's so much that you could have taken out in this sort of end towards the end of the film when we already know how the pain that he's going through.
But I wanted to feel more. That was the thing for me. I get that he's trying to do something different, but I wanted to feel a little bit more. And like Hotel Rwanda and The Killing Fields, two comparative titles that I still think about those movies. Like. Yeah. And it didn't quite get me there, and that's probably my only bit of criticism, and maybe it did drag on a little bit as well, that played into that as well, but it didn't quite grab me when he had so many chances to do so.
Yeah,
and that's nitpicking, but
I'm nitpicking as well, but towards the end of the film when they surrender and they take the kids back to that UN sort of compound sort of thing, massive Land Rover product placement, which did my head in. Like the whole film, we've gone the whole film, just set out in the middle of nowhere, and then bang, camera pans in, bang, straight in the middle of the Land Rover logo. I'm just like, didn't need it. Didn't need it. Anything?
I guess more. I love the movie. I think, in my opinion, I think it should have ended a little differently.
Yep.
I like this. I like where this is going.
So, what are your guys' thoughts? In the end scene, you've got the standoff when the new 2IC, he goes up to the commandant and they're hungry, they're not, getting fed or anything, and they're all going to storm off, and they all pull their guns, and there's a big standoff. I think Agu should have shot and killed the commandant.
Ooh.
It would have been come full circle. All the things that's happened to him, all the horrors he's been put through. I would have liked to see Agu shoot him.
Interesting. I never thought he was going to. I
didn't think he would have too, but that's how, after kind of watching it, feeling for Agu and everything he's gone through.
So then what happens? Because I don't mind where you're going with this.
Just hadn't thought that far ahead.
Well, I reckon, I think that the end scene, and Agu needing some sort of redemption, I think if he had have killed the commandant, that probably wouldn't have been able to proceed as well towards, and we'll probably get into that a bit later, but you want to feel for this kid still, and if he shoots the commandant, I feel like you lose some of that.
I'd still feel for him though, because I'd understand why he shot him.
Oh, yeah.
It goes both ways, isn't it? Because from Heater's perspective, it's that closure.
Yeah.
And from Jesse's perspective, it's keeping, what's good inside him.
So I guess what sort of themes or motives can you think of from this film? There's so much in this.
So many.
So much.
Power. I tried to think about what the main thing, what's the one thing they're trying to focus on, but I couldn't quite get there because power is such a significant theme, and power is what drives a commandant. But then you've also got, I think family is a really underrated theme in this, because it all kind of ties back into family, and then you've got your actual blood family that got them going in the first place, but then, these savages became a family of sorts as well.
And obviously, war's a theme in the film as well. I felt like that it could have been more done to explain or to sort of explain the differences in war. I mean, there was one scene where there was that white van that drove through, where there were a couple of Western photographers, and that was it.
Tourists, yeah.
Were they journalists? What were they? And
that threw me. That scene.
Is that trying to say, Western society is doing nothing in Africa to try and help, or is it saying that providing them with these weapons and is whose fault is the war sort of thing? I felt like that could have probably been explored a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me was very much like the movie Platoon, was the loss of innocence. Mm-hmm. So the tagline for the movie Platoon is the first casualty of war is innocence. And I thought that really applied to this one, going through Agu and showed basically the innocence of a child being taken away. He's been exposed to violence, to death, to sexual assault. Really felt like that loss of innocence of a child is a big one.
I felt like throughout the film they did a good job of reminding the audience that he was a child. They had the scenes, they were playing soccer all the time, they were playing tag or chasing the long grass, hunting animals, sitting around a fire, being kids, and then, I think Agu said, every person I know is dying. If this war is ending, I cannot be going back to doing child things. So, that definitely goes in with he's lost his childhood. His childhood is gone.
And do you think his character development is so significant? Do you think that's because of the situation he's in, or because he's also a child and he's at that age where it can change so quickly?
He's kind of been forced to.
Yeah,
really.
So it's a situation.
Yeah, I think it's a situation.
If he was 25 in this role, he was a 25-year-old who had the same upbringing where he was, not familiar with this sort of world, and then it happened. Do you think it would have been different?
I don't think there'd be there wouldn't have been as big a circle to go with, because he wouldn't have had that help at the end to...
Oh, yeah. Well, he wouldn't have got to the end.
He wouldn't have got to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Another thing that I really picked up on was this theme of rain and water as a turning point in Agu's sort of his life. So the first time in the movie that it rains is just after his mother and siblings are taken away in the car, and it buckets down that night, and that's sort of a turning point in his life. And then the second time it buckets down is after he kills the man brutally, where he kills him. And they're sitting in the back of the truck, and it's raining, and he's talking to Stryker and trying to get Stryker to talk to him. And then the third time is after he walks away from the commandant at the end, and he walks away from the commandant doesn't listen to his orders, walks away, decides his own fate, and then it rains again. And so I thought those were three really significant things in his life. And then the final scene is him running into the ocean.
Yeah.
So he's going back to the water, turning around with all these other kids.
Isn't it raining as well the night before they go into the ocean when they're at the city?
Yeah. So to me, I thought that was really clever the way that
cleansing
when it rained. Yeah. So it's like
that's really good.
theme of
fresh
water.
start every time. Yeah.
So yeah,
Good pick up, mate.
Oh, very good. Useful for one thing. That's good. So what do we take away from the film? Do we think it was good? Was it bad? What are our thoughts?
I would have loved to have seen this on the big screen. I think it would have been great in a cinema.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think it's overly necessary, but I do think the idea of like a dark, quiet screening, it's not the kind of thing you want to put on in the middle of the day and watch it. I don't think it needed the big screen though, because it was quite raw and emotional. But I do think if you're going to watch it properly in the dark.
Yeah,
at night time when you're ready for you're a different mindset.
Yeah,
you got to be in a real
you've got to be ready to concentrate.
And be open. Yeah,
it's an intense film. You've got to be not just in kind of a lazy mood, just like we'll just chuck something on and see. Like this is one that you really want to sit there and take in.
Idris Elba. A couple of times I felt like his British accent was just coming through every now and then. That annoyed me a little bit.
I enjoyed his accent. I thought he did a good job.
There are a couple of scenes.
I didn't notice the accent coming through, but I'm also just transfixed on it. He could speak in any accent. I'm just like, he's just brilliant.
Yeah, I'm just perving on him. IMDb. So this is a little bit of a segment that we want to talk about. Is there a point of the film anyone jumped on IMDb to look something up?
For me, it was to check Agu's age. And age when he was acting in the film. Yeah. So look, I didn't recognise many of the cast. I think in our IMDb little part we want to sit there and go, oh, what's that guy from? I've seen it, but it didn't really happen for me for this. But I mean, there's not a movie that I watch now. I'm not on IMDb, and finding out that he's 14 years old when they filmed this was super impressive.
Yeah. For me, I jumped on when we were first introduced to 2IC. I thought he looks familiar.
Was he? What was he?
I was wrong. No. Jumped on and went, oh, you know what? I don't know him. He just looked familiar. But yeah, that was the kind of only point. Other than that, not a lot of familiar actors really. Just kind of went through and enjoyed the movie. But yeah, that was the only point where I thought, hey, he looked familiar, but it turns out I was wrong.
Good. Yeah, I jumped on to check out where it was filmed because I wanted to see the locations where they picked, and obviously Ghana. So, some lovely locations. Especially the beaches towards the end.
They were nice.
Very nice.
Real big contrast to what we'd seen for a while.
Yeah. So this is the sort of time where if we've got some questions about the film that we'd like to ask each other. Is there anything that stood out for you? I've got a couple of things that I'd like to
go nuts, mate.
So we spoke about it earlier, but the commandant, does he have any good qualities at all? Like I felt like whenever they went to battle, he was rarely at the front of the line. He always sent the kids in first to do all the dirty work. So to me, was he weak? Like, was he weak the whole way through, or do you think that?
I don't. Well, in some of that, he wasn't really the fighter. He was the leader. He was there instructing everyone. I think that's common. I think in a lot of kind of war movies, kind of the battalion leader is the one that instructs him. He's there standing behind, so he can see everything unfolding. He wants to, you guys go here. I wouldn't put that as a flaw against him for not being at the front, because he's the one that should be, I guess, controlling everyone.
But doesn't a leader lead from the front?
Different kind, I guess. I
don't know if he was weak or not brave, but I mean, he was just so corrupted by power, and that's all that mattered to him. That he was kind of, if anything gets in the way, then I mean, he basically killed 2IC just because he was going to take over the group. I mean, he
wasn't 2IC's fault either.
No, he was just standing.
Someone else had said that he was going to take his job, so yeah.
So it felt like a natural progression. When you're second in charge.
Yeah.
He didn't have many redeeming qualities.
No, I don't think so either. I thought.
But I mean, as I said at the start, there was a period where I was like, okay, maybe I've got him wrong. Maybe the audience is supposed to like him. Like he's the savior. He's a protector of all these people. And I think there was enough, but there would be plenty of people in that tribe or whatever you want to call it that saw him that way.
Yeah.
So
they see him as that father figure.
But I mean, deep down, he was so fundamentally flawed in that area as well. But I mean, he did give people purpose.
What did you think about the introduction of drugs to the younger members of the tribe and some of the scenes that we got from that? Like, I thought the scene with when Agu's sort of seeing all these different colours and the different the tribe members are different sort of creatures and things like that. What do you reckon that was trying to say? Is there anything that stood out for you on, like, to me, I thought that, you know, as a filmmaker, that the directors sort of picked up on that and said, okay, we need to talk about the drugs that these kids are taking, and is that sort of them wiping from their mind the actions they're actually doing?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'd say it's something to do with it. I mean, they probably think they have to take these drugs to get by. Like, you know, they're doing horrible things, they've seen horrible things. You know, it's like kind of with any drugs in any kind of movie, a lot of it is, it's an escape, I guess, yeah, from the things they're doing.
But not to mention, it also just highlights the environment that these kids are in as well. I mean, as much as we did just talk about it being a family or a escape for them or something safe, it's not a good place.
And sort of to finish off with the questions that I've got, like, do Agu's circumstances and his desperation justify what he did in that film? Do his circumstances mean that he had to do what he did?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Otherwise, he would have been killed.
Trying to think of a way to say no to that, but
it's too hard to say.
I mean, even that first scene where he first kills a man.
Yeah.
I mean, you see the struggle that he goes with, and then straight away you have that voiceover where he's like, you know, dear God, I killed a man. Like, it's not an easy decision for him, and it's not, you know, so many people are savages in that movie, and he stands out. What's your answer to that?
I totally agree. I think it's a really tricky one because, you know, the first thing you say is, why doesn't he run at night? The first night, one of the nights, they're all asleep, ample opportunity to run. And then you could almost have another story of him on the run with these guys chasing him. But obviously, you know, this story is going in one way. But, you know, it's tough because in that situation where he's told to kill someone, he has to do it. He's got no choice. But I feel like as an audience, we were watching him making that choice over and over in his head. And obviously he had no choice in that instance. But from then on, you know...
The choice to stay, like...
Where would he run to? I mean, the movie starts with him running and he gets caught. Like, if he runs again, is he just going to get caught again by them? Like, where are you thinking?
Exactly. Well, who knows? Like, you know, so conveniently at the end, they're able... At the end of the film, conveniently, they're able to just surrender when they want to surrender to who they can surrender. So, and, you know, we saw earlier on that there was that white van walking through. So... There are obviously people around that they can go to, so I don't know.
But this comes back to him being a kid at the end of the day, and this is all he's got, and this is all he knows. It's almost a credit to him that he doesn't get fully corrupted by it when he really just could have completely bought into it. Yeah. He does still maintain some sort of decency. So, I think it's time to bring out our ratings for the film, pretty much. We're going to go around the table. We're going to rate the film out of 5, and then we're going to come up with an average to give our overall feelings of the film. So let's go with Heater. How do we go?
I love this film. I give it a 4 out of 5.
I thought it was a really powerful and inviting narrative, and I loved the way that the journey was buddied up to the main character. It's 4 stars to me. I think it just missed out, as I said, just pulling that emotion out of me a little bit more. But 4 stars, great movie.
I guess I'm going to sound very repetitive here, but I'm going to give it 4 stars as well. My reasons are that it deserved a really good edit, that it needed to be cut down massively, and I think you could have told that story in a lot shorter time. What happened to the good old days where movies were 90 minutes? Like, over 2 hours for this film, a little bit too long, so yeah, 4 out of 5 for me as well, but I totally agree with what you guys have both said. So that pretty much brings us to the end of our episode.
Full disclosure for our audience, we haven't discussed these films at all, so we wanted to make this conversation as organic as possible. The one thing that we spoke about was we need to figure out what our average score is, so we need to find out how many stars you gave it beforehand, because we're not going to be able to do the maths on hand. And as it turned out, we all gave this film a 4, so
that's a nice and easy one to start with. And easy discussion. The film averages out to a 4.
So yeah, for those playing at home, 4 stars was the average.
So we do have a social media presence that we've set up, and we're looking forward to use. We're going to put a question on social media each week after our episode, and we're hoping that you guys will send in some questions for us too about the films. So the question we're going to chuck up after this episode is, do you think that Agu will go on to live a normal life? I think that's a good little question to sort of start a little bit of conversation on our social media forums. We do have Twitter, where we are at Flix Forum. Facebook, we are also Flix Forum, and on Instagram, we're Flix Forum too. So quite handy, easy to remember. Our next episode we're going to do the second film in the Netflix series, and we're going to discuss the 2015 Western comedy The Ridiculous Six, starring...
Very similar film to...
massively.
Very similar.
Ridiculous Six, starring Adam Sandler. So we'd like you to try and watch it if you can before, so you can join in the discussion. I'd like to say sort of thanks, guys, for our first episode.
Thank you. No, this has been a lot of
thanks,
fun.
guys. It's been great fun. Thanks for having us.
Seems like we've gone all right, so hopefully you'll hear us again next week, and we'll talk about The Ridiculous Six. All right, see you later.
See ya.
See you guys.